This is the Inside Data Center Podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
Welcome to the Inside Data Center Podcast. Today I'm joined by John Rippingale, CEO of Sudlows Consulting. Good morning, John.
Hi, Andy. Good morning, good afternoon over here in Dubai. How are you?
I'm good. Back for another episode. We were just chatting before we started recording. Our first episode recording was episode 6, which was released, this will blow your mind, on September the 11th, 2020.
2020. Wow, 4 years. That's just over 4 years. Time has flown. I was talking to someone earlier today about it, and I said it must only be 2 or 3 years maximum. But yeah, and what number are you on now? What episode will this be?
I should have prepared this. Roughly 175, I think.
Okay.
Which is, again, quite crazy when you think about it. I think with the podcast, I don't want to talk about the podcast too long, but started as a bit of a hobby to see how it goes, and because you enjoy it and everyone likes listening, it keeps going. But I still can't believe it's that many episodes.
Yeah, no, happy for you. It's done really well. I think everyone looks forward to the weekly updates and listening to the podcast for a bit of industry insight. So,
no, definitely. And obviously, we're going to cover a lot about Sudlows today, and also the Gulf region as a whole. I know there's so much happening out there. Before we do all that, do you want to just give a quick introduction for anyone that doesn't know sort of who you are and what your role is at Sudlows?
Yeah, so I'm John Rippingale, CEO of Sudlows Consulting. We're a specialist data center consultancy focusing on professional services around critical infrastructure. Some may know Sudlows in the UK as the sort of turnkey design and build contractor. It was about 10 years ago this month that I was sort of selected by Sudlows and went to open their first international office here in Dubai in the UAE. We decided then to sort of keep it as professional services initially, but early on in the journey decided just to stick with the design consultancy, commissioning management, commissioning authority type roles. And yeah, then it's sort of grown from there in 10 years from one of one to now one of 240, I think, employees across 4 or 5 different countries. So it's gone quickly, but it's been 10 years. Overnight success, as everyone says.
That's it, exactly. And I think, and obviously, like you say, 10-year anniversary, which is a huge achievement. So well done on doing that to everyone involved, and obviously yourself for leading it. And we'll cover off that soon. I ask everyone this question, and I would have asked you it back in September 2020, and I should have probably listened again. But for anyone that didn't hear that episode, we will put it in the show notes so you can go back and reminisce if you like. But do you want to give a quick insight into how you started your career and how you ended up in the world of data centers?
So I studied engineering at university, electrical engineering, and then was sort of that year after uni thinking, what do I do? Do I have to start work? And I got a call from a friend who put me in touch with a recruiter who was recruiting for Key Source. And they said, do you know what a generator or a UPS is? I said, yeah, know what those are. Had the interview, went well, joined them as a pre-sales engineer, worked through the design department onto project management, testing, commissioning, over about 5 years, and then the opportunity with Sudlows came on board to sort of relocate to the Middle East, to Dubai, and open their first international office. So I kind of fell into it. I think, like a lot of people did, it wasn't a game plan, but it's been 15 years now, and yeah, love it.
Exactly. I think we all do. It's one of those you enjoy it so much that you just get stuck in it, and you wouldn't want to do anything else.
It's the projects that, working with the big, large hyperscaler cloud clients. The scale of projects getting bigger and bigger, more complex, especially now with AI and liquid cooling, high density, but also just working with engineers. As a company, we don't have sales team. We don't have everyone's engineer background pretty much. So we're all kind of a bit geeky in our own way, and we like projects, we like complexity, we like solving problems, starting a project, seeing it through to completion, and the testing and commissioning. So it's quite nice working with like-minded individuals, even the mechanical engineers as well.
Even the mechanical. Shout out to the mechanical engineers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it earlier, 10-year anniversary is fast approaching. It's the 7th of November as we record this. It will be released imminently, but you may have just passed it, or you may just be before
we've just hit it. Yeah, the date on our license when we opened here was the 4th of November. So I came into the office on Monday. There was a big cake. We did a cake cutting, and there was balloons and a bottle of champagne. I was like, oh, the people remembered. It's nice.
Definitely. And I think, and as I say, like you should be proud as well, because I know we'll go through it, but you've achieved a lot in that time. And like you say, it's it might feel like it's gone in the blink of an eye, but I'm sure there's been a lot happening across that 10-year period, and a lot of challenges, a lot of successes.
Yeah. I think definitely the first 3 years, there's a lot of, is this going to work? Are there really going to be data centers in the Middle East? Because there was only small facilities, half a megawatt at most. The big cloud players weren't here, but as data sovereignty came in, demand for services from the government to work with AWS's, Azure's, they had to house the data here. Obviously banking sector, all those rules sort of governed that there had to be a requirement for data centers here. And I think also if you look at gaming and the bandwidth required for online gaming, that's also driven that. And then all services like Spotify and Netflix. So it's been slowly ramping up, and then we've just started working on the big 100 megawatt scheme with Casna. So that's a huge milestone for sort of megawatt numbers here in the Middle East. So it's going well. It's really exciting times at the moment.
Definitely. And when you look back to those early days when you were number one and the only one, how was it for you as an individual? What was it like going into a new region, trying to establish a business and trying to really, and also understand that region from a data center perspective?
There's a lot of door knocking and just trying to understand the ecosystem. So you've got the clients, but then you've also got the supply chain. You've got the main suppliers, the integrators, and the operators. So, and then the other consultants as well. So it was really just kind of understanding who's doing what. It is a small industry, but then I think whichever country you're in, it still is quite a small industry, and everyone knows each other. And I still, travel to Cannes and see people that I used to know in the UK. Still keep in touch with, Rob Elder, Andy Hayes, see what those guys are doing, and some of the guys back at Kiesel. So it's nice to see that everyone stayed true on the data center path. Everyone's doing really well in their own sort of respective right. So it was a tough few years, setting up and then building the reputation. I think as a consultant, what we do, only as good as your last job. So you really have to have that knowledge and be adding value to your client, and then building the right team as well. So we haven't carried out any acquisitions. Every person has been interviewed and brought on one by one, which is painstaking getting to the sort of 240 we are now. And we'll probably talk later about the industry skills shortage, but sometimes I know I don't get too involved in interviews anymore, but I know the PMs can interview upwards of sort of a dozen people sometimes. And once you've interviewed a dozen people, that's minimum 12 hours out of your life, out of your working week. And that's a lot of time when we're all busy, and then just to find that right person. But we do always find the right candidate. It just takes a little bit longer these days.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult when you're establishing a business. You go through those milestones, don't you? Like it might be the first 10 people, the first 30 people, or it might be the first 1 megawatt project. Whatever it is, you get to these points and you struggle to get over that next hurdle. And there's always these, and once you get over it, you start to go again. And when you look back from a milestone perspective, what are the key milestones you look back on over the 10 years and think, yeah, that was a really important milestone for us as a business?
I think when getting on some of the master services agreement frameworks with the hyperscalers, that sort of testament of the work that we're doing. So we deliver a lot of work for the operators, the lease providers, but then to be working directly for the end users, that's definitely a big milestone. Obviously, becoming financially independent from the UK, being able to pay back the first few years of investment, it was quite an important milestone to cash flow positive. And getting to that, we've done over 1 gigawatt of projects in India now. Obviously, the scale there is quite huge. So we again had a nice big cake cutting for that. Employee wise, 100 is quite an important milestone for us. But now we're coming up to the 250 mark. We're embarking on a plan to go to 500 and 1,000, which is growth into new markets. As we all know, the industry is in a great place at the moment. There's more projects than there are people, consultants, suppliers to do them at the moment. So kind of hope they don't all try and happen at once, because we'd rather everything sort of spreads out a little bit, give everyone a chance to do it. Plus it'll be a struggle otherwise. So we're looking at kind of capitalizing on that, working with existing clients who are expanding into new regions and have said, right, you got an office there, oh, I can get one there. If you just tell me you want us there, and we'll do it. And we're doing that now in a couple of new countries in Europe. So paving our way to expand there. The USA is always something that's of interest to people, and they say, oh, the US. I think there's a statistic that more projects in the US have been awarded in the last 2 years, megawatts wise, than there is capacity in the whole of Europe. Someone told me some metric like that, which is phenomenal. And about 6 weeks ago, we secured our first project in the US. So we never really had it in the 2-year plan, maybe the 3 to 5 year plan. We're focusing more on expansion into Europe and to few key cities in APAC. So that was a bit of a surprise. But again, it was a client that we worked with in the early stages of a company formation here in Dubai back in 2019. The then CTO has moved on to a new role, and he just said, I loved working with you guys, John. We're going to do something in the US. Can your directors fly out? We'll do a tour of 5 sites across the US and Canada, give you the order for the first one. And we're not talking megawatts here, it's gigawatts. So the big one is a 5 gigawatt campus, and we're just chopping it up into 500 megawatt blocks. Gas generation, it's, just from looking back 5 years ago to the work we're doing now. So it's quite impressive, the scale the industry has jumped up ahead.
Yeah, the scale is always what gets me. I think like you say, when I do these podcasts and I look back over the 4 years since I started it, when you start, I look at the conversations I was having 4 years ago about the size of the projects, like 10, 20 megawatt. And then I recorded one last week, or released one last week with Scala, and it's, we're up to 5 gigawatts. It's crazy how it's grown from where it was to where it is now in what actually is a very short space of time. 4 years is not that long in the majority of industries.
Yeah. If you look at it, it's definitely exponential in terms of the growth. But then the project life cycle and construction hasn't grown in that fashion. So building 100 megawatts, it's not going to take you 10 times 10 megawatts, but it's still going to take you about 6 to 7 times 10 megawatts. So those things haven't moved in the way that IT densities have, and that's something that's where the industry is detached. What's happening inside the data hall is very different to outside, until some new technologies come along, or we just have more reliance on the self-generation and reduce some of our grey space UPS generators and go, well, we don't need them because of the way the IT works. We can have resiliency across multiple sites and take that risk.
When you look back over the last 10 years, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in that period?
I think definitely from starting a new business and being a new player to the market, is for building that reputation. Was probably the hardest, and I think we started doing a lot of work on commissioning projects, because when I relocated, there were a few projects in play, but they'd they'd already been designed, and they were, the contractor was just about to be appointed, so there wasn't the volume of projects there is now. So I was thinking, how do we get access into these projects? So naturally commissioning the back end phase of the project. So we secured a number of commissioning projects, and we kind of became known as the commissioning consultants, as opposed to, we're data center consultants from the start to the finish, from concept, feasibility, detailed design, site supervision, and commissioning. So with a few clients, it was breaking that mold. I think the biggest challenge was probably waiting for the region to catch up with the US and Europe in terms of what's happening with cloud deployment, hyperscaler investment, and having large co-location facilities as opposed to on-prem enterprise. But when that happened and everyone started to do that migration, and obviously digitization of government services, smart city, all those nice keywords which require lots of data center consumption, that's when being a niche consultancy specializing in what we do really stood us out from the competition. And clients said, no, the spec says data center consultant, not general A to Z consultant who does a bit of everything. I think that was one of the challenges. And then also getting people to on board with you, recruitment wise, not because of a shortage of people, but because they're taking a bit of a chance on you. Because especially if it's just you and a handful of people and they come to a small service office and they're thinking, well, what happens if work goes away or they don't win a project, or John gets sick or something happens, who's going to pay the salary? How much, what's the next 12 months look like? So I'd always reassure people that we've got projects for the next 12 months. Beyond that, I can't guarantee. But now I tell people, well, this is the truth. We have projects for the next 3 years. So, and we're constantly recruiting. We've always got about 5-10 open roles. And that's just because of we're growing. Our attrition rates are very low, a bit higher in India, but I think that's the market in India. Everyone likes to jump around quite a bit, but there's a lot of growth happening. But we see it with our clients there, everyone. But the merry-go-round stopped about a year ago. So I think that's good for everyone, so we can get on delivering the work as opposed to pinching people off each other. So I think those have been sort of the key challenges. And then I think putting in the processes in place in a growing business is very easy when all of you are sat in effectively one room. Everyone kind of knows what's going on. People are wearing different hats. But as you get bigger, you have to, right, we need someone to focus on that solely now, and that we need a person to do that. And then also the communication between the team, even with the great stuff like Zoom and Teams, because there's a lot more going on in different countries, that communication break can happen and people can feel a bit detached. And some of the best people we've got in the business, they've had that mentoring and close working relationship with myself and the other directors. But as we've got larger, you put more levels in, and I might not see some of the team who are on site for 2 months. I mean, we try and get around to all the projects, but I've told I need to go to Saudi every 4 to 6 weeks. It's probably been 8 weeks since I've been now. And we were talking before we started this call. Next week I'm in AfricaCom in Cape Town, the week after in Italy, the week after Bahrain for Touchdown, and then going to India for our 5th anniversary celebrations. So it's trying to squeeze some time, and over the last 4 years we've got started a family, so now I'm trying to juggle growing the business with a young family. There's only so many hours in the day, and that's also one of the challenges. But we're in a good shape at the moment. We've gone through some sort of external support and guidance at the moment, an audit to sort of see where areas are we can help the business to grow and capitalize on what we're doing. But it's, again, having that time when everyone's focused on the new projects, the delivery of those, growing the business, all of that back office process thing, which everyone sees, it's not as interesting as the project delivery, right? But it's really important to have those in place. So we're doing that now. We've got external parties and supporting us, and the roadmap's there for the next 6 months. So that will really smooth things, and we need to make take away all the difficulties that people have, to make their job as easy as possible, so they can focus on delivering to the customers, who are the most important part of the business, are the employees and the customers. Keep the employees happy, that they do good work. Customers happy, you get more work. It's quite a simple formula, really, but not always.
It always sounds simple when you say it, but I feel your pain. Dad as well. It's a similar thing, but just remember to always save time for family. That's all I'll say. It's the most important thing. We touched on a few aspects around the future previously, but for Sudlows Consulting in particular, anything else on the roadmap that you want to talk about, or anything exciting ahead?
When we spoke last, we'd have just sort of started our India operations. Since then, we've opened our Saudi Arabia office and also our South Africa office. So we've been kind of going east and then within east a little bit into India. India's still the largest market in APAC, but we're looking at a few further markets like Malaysia and Australia now, seeing where the investment is. Singapore, it's quite saturated. I think also getting talent there is also becoming more difficult. I've seen here in the UAE a lot of people relocating to Dubai, leaving Singapore. It's becoming very expensive. I mean, even we were selling some of our baby stuff, and a couple who came to bought it. The wife, she was sort of 6-7 months pregnant, so they'd done a relocation at that stage of the pregnancy. You think surely you would just stay, have the baby, but they said no. We had to sort of relocate. It was just getting too prohibitive. So we decided, Singapore is maybe in the future, but markets like Malaysia and Australia are looking quite interesting. Saudi Arabia and the GCC, I mean, you see on the news all the investment happening in terms of AI, and the governments here are very pro having big links with the US giants on that. So that's driving a lot of the data center growth and investment, and also security of what we're doing and intergovernment relations. So that's been a main key driver for the growth of some of our clients on top of the general sort of cloud services. And then Africa, we've done some quite big projects in parts of Africa. Key focuses sort of Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Uganda. We've done some stuff in Mozambique, smaller jobs. But if you look at the subsea connectivity around Africa, also the age of below 25, 30-year-old population, broadband penetration, it's crying out for the data centers, and we're seeing the growth happen now. So it's important that we're there early on, and we're building the team out in South Africa, and we're starting to see the projects getting to that scale. And you talk to the clients there, and we're talking about 2, 3, maybe 5 megawatts, and so I said, soon you'll be doing 20, 30, and they can't quite imagine it. But then I just say, well, this is what happened in Dubai, in the UAE, which is a population of 11 million, and now we're doing 100 megawatt projects. So, and your population's 60, 70 million. So you just have to kind of work it backwards and say that, very quickly you're going to have a catch up, and you'll end up skipping the 5, 10, 15, and you'll just go straight to the 30, 40. But then that's back to the questions on the infrastructure and power in some of those countries to support it. So, which is why Kenya, where it's all geothermal, the grid 93%, is very interesting prospect, and its connectivity from the east to the rest of the world. So,
a lot happening, and industry-wide as a overall view. What do you think the future holds? We talked about scale. Obviously, scale is something that comes up a lot in my conversations. Power, you've just touched on, like they're the challenges we face. But is there anything in particular you think is going to really impact the sector over the next few years?
It's the complexities of what we're doing with the densities. Obviously, there's the shift now to the on-chip direct cooling and immersion for some people. But it's the demand on the resources, and we're not quite at a stage where we've got robots building data centers. There's obviously a lot of prefab work happening. That's going to mitigate some of that site work, but the challenges are going to be the power. So obviously now people are looking at plots close to power stations to get that power connectivity. You can pull in fiber from anywhere. Fiber is easy, but the size of the power infrastructure now that's being pulled by these data center campuses is phenomenal, and it's not something that the local power networks can do through busy metros, established metros, where you're gonna have to cross motorways and things like that. It's just not feasible, let alone the cost impact of all that cabling. So the key is looking at those plots near to power stations. And then the skill shortage. So we started going to university fairs now, trying to get the grads in. We just need a lot more people, but we're definitely seeing a growing interest in data centers and engineering over the last few years. I think a lot of the work that everyone in the industry is doing as a whole, not just iMasons and the consultants, but there's a lot of learning and putting out in the public eye about data centers. I think definitely, if we just take general public, there's a big oil and gas conference that happens in Abu Dhabi, ADIPEC, every year. This year they had a whole section on AI, and there was actually talks by data center operators. Gulf Data Hub and Casna were part of panels. So it's reached that level now that data centers are becoming, on the board with oil and gas, and people know what they are. There's lovely conferences, PTC in Hawaii, and there was YOTA over in Vegas. I don't know if you got chance to go to that or heard any stories.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, maybe one for the car. I didn't go to either, but yeah, I'm told PTC is really good, and maybe YOTA next year. But there's more and more exotic destinations for these data center conferences, which it is work, but yeah, my wife says it's not, but it definitely have to reassure them, all the spouses and partners, that is a lot of hard work on these conferences. So.
Oh, exactly. Are you going away again? I'm working away again. That's the conversation. That's the conversation. But you're right.
You have to play catch up from the day job, all the meetings, lack of sleep, and then all the new opportunities you've got to then follow up on, and yeah.
Exactly that. No, but you're right though. The exposure of the industry is a big thing for talent, because if people know who we are, we've got a chance. And if they don't know who we are, which deliberately they didn't, because we didn't tell anyone we were here, there was no way we were going to attract people. Whereas now I get a lot more inquiries from people outside of the industry asking how they could get an opportunity in the industry. I think now it's that balance between creating those opportunities for those people and being open enough to know that we can't just look for people with experience from the industry. And there's a lot of people doing great work around that, like some of those you mentioned. So it's definitely changing.
Yeah, and then we've got the old pioneers of the industry who are probably reaching retirement age now, or some of them have sold their companies. They're going to be cashing out and trying to enjoy that money, as they rightfully should. So we're going to be losing a lot of good people who've grown up through the industry. So we need to fill those spaces, and it's also time for some change with what we're doing. But we still feel that there is a lot of repetition with things we do, and there's always a bit of resistance to change. People always talk about sustainability, but there's always a cost involved, and there's this drive for the wholesale pricing for the dollar per kilowatt to go down. But if you look at a cost plan, if the client we're working on a project now, and the end tenant wants liquid cooling, but they want the flexibility of up to 50% air cooled, or 50% liquid cooling, 50% air, or all liquid cooling. Well, we're having to, whoever's building that needs to provision the additional infrastructure for that. And that's going to cost additional money. And those nice, pretty stainless steel pipes that go above the racks, and those CDUs, they're not cheap. So the costs are going up. But everyone's still trying to drive the cost down. Resource costs are going up from both physical resource, people resource. At some point it needs to kind of hit the bottom of the curve and start coming up again, because it's not sustainable, especially when clients are requesting, I want such and such with so many data center experience or so much megawatt experience. Well, that person doesn't come cheap, even for us to hire them. Or when excuse me, you lose one of your good consultants, and they're going to go work for an end user hyperscaler or an operator, and you're like, oh, let's keep you. What? Oh, you're getting a 50% hike, right? What? I definitely can't charge 50% extra on our fees. So it's a bit of a balancing act to try and go, well, we have to let some move on to pastures new, and good for them. Most of guys or girls who do that, they spend a good sort of 5 years with us, and then go, right, it's time for a change, which is good. It's the people that jump around for a year. That's what we need to avoid. You want people to commit a good 3 to 5 years in a business. They get more out of it, and the business gets more out of it. And there's probably no better opportunity than in a business, say like ours and others who are growing so rapidly, because the room for your own personal development and growth is phenomenal. Mine started as a regional manager, now the CEO of the company. That probably wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed working where I was working before, or didn't take the risk and join something that is growing and expanding. And then, a lot of my key team have all, they took that leap of faith. They might have come in early stages, maybe not where they wanted to be financially, but they saw the potential, and now they've significantly jumped in terms of what they're getting, both financially but also from overall personal development, and exposure to different parts of the business, which you can't do if you go into a big structured company. Growing company, there's always, you can always get involved in a bit of everything, and you can say, right, there's a problem there. Someone can say, right, I want to take that problem on. Great, okay, you're moving to Qatar, or you're moving to the US, and they're like, yeah, happy to do that. And then suddenly they've elevated themselves in their career. They've got to work hard to make it happen, but the opportunity's there. The right person, the right mindset, the right hard work. Put the hours in. Work like the 1%, not the 99%. Put that bit of extra effort in. It's any advice to anyone. If you want to be successful, do what everyone else doesn't do, and that's put that extra bit of effort in. So
definitely. And if there's one thing this industry offers at the moment, it's opportunity, and you hit the nail on the head there. Really, it's there if you want it. You've got to go and get it, though. It's not going to come to you.
But then there's a lot of new players coming into the market as well, not just in terms of clients. People who, data centers is the next gold rush, right? And people say, right, let's start a data center company, but then they go about it completely the wrong way. They kind of ignore the advice of the experienced team they may have hired, or they engage with consultants like us and our competition who, we work on projects around the world with different end users, different operators, developers who've been doing this for a decade and have got hundreds, thousands of megawatts. So we're seeing what they're doing. So listen, if we're giving advice to new clients, or even, clients in that they're not quite mature, they've been operating for a few years, it's listen to what we're saying. We're not saying it for the fun of it. We're saying it because if we make you successful, we'll be successful because we'll grow with you. So just take a bit of what we're saying. We're not being difficult, and data centers are expensive. It costs a lot of money now to, you're going to start a 10 megawatt facility. You got to have 100 million US plus before you invested, before you even see any return on that. And that's not going to work for everyone. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It will, operators will get rich, but you have to bide your time, I think, and plan that out and be prepared to invest in professional services, listen to those that are working with those who are successful, and take a little bit of that knowledge, put your own twist on it, and there you go. Like we see with this new ventures popping up in Europe all the time, right? Let's hope they are successful. The market's there, Andy. So,
the market is most definitely there. And before I let you get on, I had a couple more questions, but you've pretty much answered them already. I've asked you before if you could give one piece of advice to anyone looking to work in the sector, what would it be? And I should have gone back and listened to what your answer was, but I think you just gave a great answer there around be the 1%.
Yeah, I think also if you know that you've not got the experience in the industry, sometimes you have to take like a little step backwards to go in and prove yourself. We've got a couple, one of the guys works for me is ex-army, and it's cool. It's like stepping up or something. You have to be doing the role before you get the recognition for it. So you need to be acting up. So if you want to get into the industry, don't say, "Oh, this is what I want to have." Right, give it 6 months, and then prove yourself, because there is a skill shortage, and if you're the board, C-level, your management, they see you doing a great job putting the effort in, and that you've really jumped in both feet first, and you've translated what you know from another engineering area, and you've really grasped the whole concept of data centers and what we do. You're going to go far in that business. You're going to go to the top very easily. But don't sit there, cap in hand, expecting stuff day one, and it works both ways, right? And I think the most successful people at Sudlows Consulting that work for me they've never asked for a pay rise. There's something to be said for that, because it gets recognized, it happens, they get promotions before they ask, because they're just working hard and getting on with it and saying, John, what else can I do? Oh, this sounds like this is a problem. I'll sort this out for you. I'll go there, no problem. It's done. I'll just give you an update once it's sorted. Great. And that's what you want, not just, Could talk a long time about this, the entitled generation, but
yeah, we'll leave it there. But also, that's good advice for people, but also good advice for organisations about looking after your people. Because again, you're obviously doing a good job looking after them, whereas a lot of organisations don't do that. So it works both ways. But I think you raise a valid point there around whether it's entitlement from the organisation or from the employee. It's being aware of when someone's doing a good job, and also being aware of when your organisation's not doing a good job.
Good job, yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. It comes a limit of paying people. You can't keep paying people more and more money, because this business isn't profitable, then there is no business, and then all 250 people lose their jobs. So it's about doing little things to make it a good. You want people to come to work, enjoy it, the social side of it, flexibility when there's family arrangements, schooling, work-life balance. You start plugging those things in to make it a good place to work, which is something that we're working hard on at the moment. Little things like toast and fresh fruit in the office gets people in early. They like to have a cup of coffee, have a bit of toast, miss the traffic, but then they're there catching up, and it's those little add-ons to make the business a nice place to be. So that's one thing we're also working on. And that work-life balance, like you said, is quite important. You can end up working quite long hours, demanding deadlines for clients, and we do take on. There's a lot of work, and sometimes we do put the team on overtime just because we know we've got a busy 3-week period. So just let everyone benefit from it, because and the team are happy to get a bit extra. We get the work done. Clients happy the work's done on time. We can bill the work, get the cash in. It's a bit of a win-win, to be honest. So, but there's not many that pay overtime. Our HR told me, she came from a different company, and said that not many companies pay overtime. So I'm quite surprised, because I remember when I was doing late nights commissioning till 2-3 a.m. If I wasn't going to get paid a little bit extra, it'd be the last time you do it, right?
You got to give a bit.
Yeah,
definitely got to give a bit. Thanks for that. So obviously, hats off again. 10 years is a big achievement. Let's not undervalue it, I think. So well done to you and all the team and everyone that's put in the hard work to achieve it. And good luck to the next 10 years. If anyone wants to get hold of you or learn anything more about Sudlows Consulting, what's the best way to get hold of you?
They can email us at uptime@sudlows.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn or through our website contact page.
And we'll add the website in the show notes when we release it. But thanks for your time. It's good to catch up 4 years later. It's
4 years. We'll do it maybe 3 years later. It didn't feel like 4 years though, Andy. It definitely felt like 2, maybe 3 at a push. But
no, definitely. I don't think I think there'll be too much to talk about in the next 4 years to wait 4 years to do it. There's too much already, but there's next 4 years are going to be crazy. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll obviously catch up again soon.
You too. All right. Thanks, Andy. Nice to see you. Bye.